YouTube, what's good? Back with another custom. I'm gonna try to stay more active on this account, do more customs as far as, people that have a lot of questions about certain things. Like today I've been getting a lot of questions about dyeing and what do I use for dyeing and dyeing suede in particular. So today I'm going to be dyeing a pair of Rookie of the Years into a darker brown. So the things you're gonna need is, of course, Angela suede dye. And it is super late. I'm gonna be working all night just to get caught up on custom. So if I seem tired, this is completely why. It is late, been a long day, but I still have a long night. You're also gonna need an Angelus brush to get this with, a nice clean one. That way, no other color gets mixed in with the dye and turns this suede a different color. This one's a pretty easy tutorial, nothing to it. You're just gonna have to be basically precise and clean and careful where you get the dye, because it can get messy. You need to keep an eye on how much dye you're applying at a time. Second thing is, it needs to be dyed evenly throughout the whole shoe. So my biggest tip is, to anyone that's gonna try this, try to stick to one panel at a time. So start with the heel panel, strap panel, then come down the lace, the front strap, and then the toe box all at one. And you're just gonna dye it nice and even through it. Some shoes you'll see, like I'm working on an Oregon Ducks 3 right now, and I'm dyeing with Angelus's green dye, and I've had to dye it about 5 or 6 times, because after a few days it does lighten up once all the alcohol evaporates out of it. And you might have to do that with this one, we'll see. But I'm gonna go ahead and just start applying some dye to it. And I would normally suggest using a smaller cup or container for this dye, just because this one is a little deep to dip your brush into, and I have spilled dye before. I've actually spilled it on my phone while I was recording, and it dyed my screen red for like a day. But just be careful. Wear gloves if you're not, careful. If you think you're gonna make a mess, wear some gloves. But yeah, all you're gonna do is just basically take your, pretty self-explanatory, take your brush, get it completely soaked with the dye. Try not to get on your fingers, because what's gonna happen if it gets on your fingers and you go to grab the shoe and you grab the midsole where the stitching is on the midsole or on the white leather, you're gonna be upset, because it is going to dye panels you do not want. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this side panel. And honestly, just take your time. This isn't a custom that's gonna go very fast. Be careful not to drip off your brush. Usually the brush holds the dye pretty well, so you won't need to really worry about dripping unless you're over applying. But for the most part, just be super careful and try not to make a mess. Full strokes. And it's gonna take a couple dye sessions. You're not gonna get it the first time. It's not gonna be the color you want the first go around. And I have used this method with an airbrush gun too. The one thing I did find is it takes longer to dry, because the alcohol evaporates through the air gun a lot faster. So it's definitely, prepping and whatnot is a lot more work, but in the end result, it does look pretty even. It's easier to get even than brushing it on. Okay, and this is what it's gonna look like your first coat. Like I said, it's gonna be really uneven. It's not gonna be, you know, perfect your first go around. It is gonna take a couple dye sessions. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this hill panel, and I will be back to show you the results. All right, I'm back with that panel. Now it does look crazy dark right now. It will lighten up. This just helps to get it nice and even. Another tip that I would recommend as well is I do the same panel on the other shoe. Keep it even. That way I know I'm applying the same amount of coats, because sometimes what happens if you go through and do one shoe to where you like it, you don't know how many coats you did on a specific panel. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the heel tab on this shoe. That way it just kind of stays even. You don't want to come out with a shoe that's darker than the other shoe. It's not a good look, and it's hard to even it out afterwards. So just simplify it and just do it from the get-go. So stick to one panel on one shoe, move to the other shoe, same panel, get the same color, and then once it dries, it will turn into a lighter color. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on the other shoe, and I'll keep it moving. I'll be back. All right, I'm done with the second heel panel. Let me show you the first one. It's already starting to fade to lighten up a little bit. Like I said, this is gonna take a few coats on every panel just to even out, to make sure that it gets even, and then it's gonna need a good brush afterwards. So I'm gonna go ahead and start doing the heel strap and the little tab on the back, just on each one. So I'm gonna repeat this process over until the whole shoe's done, and so I'm not gonna make you watch it. I will just continue to work through the night, get it mostly done, and I'll be back to show you guys. All right, I let these dry overnight after I applied the first coat. Sorry, last night I was so tired. It was a long day. I was up till like 1 painting, just working on a few jobs off and on, just trying to get caught up with all my orders. As you can see, it's a little uneven, like I told you it would be your first coat, which normally almost all dyes do, so don't get discouraged when you're going. You know, when you're first starting and you're like, it's not even, doesn't look right, don't worry, don't sweat it, just keep going. It will dry even eventually. You just have to keep putting on the coats, get it to the color you want. See, the back tab is a little bit darker, and usually that's because I'm trying to get it so perfect. When I'm first starting, I want the whole shoe to be perfect, and as I keep going, eventually I start applying the least amount that I can to hurry and get the first coat on. But that's just fine, because I'll just start to the front and work to the back, even it out. He really wants this shoe dark, so we're just going to keep applying until it ends up just being dark. And then when we're done, eventually you'll be grabbing a mink brush and you'll be brushing it out, you know, which will help get it even. Yesterday I want to give out MB Boutique a shout out for the hat that I was wearing last night, that Jordan Concord hat. I appreciate it, my dude. That hat is super dope. Even though I no longer will be rocking Concords, I just simplified my shoe collection, got tired of wearing, you know, army boots. I can't do 11s anymore. They just don't make them like they used to. But that hat is super dope, so I appreciate you for getting me that. And yeah, so I'm gonna start on this shoe. I'm gonna start with the toe box or the toe strap and work back this time, and I will be back to show you some more photos. All right, back with the results of the second dye. As you can tell, it's starting to get a little bit more even. Haven't brushed them out yet at all. Just gonna wait for them to dry a little bit. But yeah, starting to look a lot better. I put this on my Instagram live and everyone kept asking me if it was a Travis Scott. Poor man's Travis Scott. No, it's not at all. It wasn't the intent. It wasn't the goal. Just want to do a darker rookie of the year. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and wait for this to dry out, brush it out, and then see what it looks like and see if we're gonna do a third coat. I'm gonna contact the customer and see if this is the color that he wants. And if it isn't, wants to go darker, we'll do another dye session. And as you go through the dye sessions, the second one's a lot faster than the first one. The third one's a lot faster than the second one. They get easier and easier, and you'll start to notice that it can only get to a certain color. So it starts to even out. So again, don't get discouraged because the first coat's gonna look horrible. It's gonna be super uneven. You're gonna think that you ruined your shoe, but just keep pushing through it. Keep adding dye, panel by panel, shoe by shoe. So back panel on the right shoe, back panel on the left shoe. That's my biggest tip. It works for me best. That way you don't get too uneven shoes at the end, because that's the worst. I've had that before in the past, to where the left shoe is darker than the right shoe. Then I add more on the right shoe, and then I have to brush it out, add a little bit more on the left shoe, and it just becomes a big hassle, and you end up using way more product than you need. So best tip is just to do panel by panel, shoe by shoe. So I will be back again. We'll find out if he wants to go darker. If not, I will come back and show you the brush session, what I do to use a mink brush to brush this out, to give it more of a natural look to it, and to even out some of the dark spots that may still be left. So I will be back again. Thank you for following.